We have a problem. So many things in our modern society are hurting our gut microbes. But a beautiful feature of the gut microbiome is the resilience, the fact that it'll rebuild, and you can help in that process.
In this class, you'll learn how to eat better to nourish your gut microbes and how to rebuild our microbiome back to health.
How do you actually bring foods into your life that are compatible with a healthy microbiome? Because in this class, you'll learn how the gut microbiome is at the center of your overall health and well-being, and how your gut impacts your body, your mind, and your life.
This is Gut Health on Masterclass.
Gardening is a great way to do something that's incredibly rewarding that I think we've lost touch with, which is just producing your own food. You know, it's a simple recipe. You have soil, put a plant in, water it, make sure there's sunlight, and you end up with something that's just magical at the end of it.
You know, I look at this basket here and I think, I mean, this is full of nutrients and dietary fiber, everything that my gut bacteria is wanting to consume.
Eating all of the things that you can find in the produce section, but those things have been harvested, you know, sometimes weeks ago and sitting in a warehouse. If you come out to your garden and you pull a ripe tomato off the vine and you put it in your mouth, it's like incomparable.
We realize that not everyone can have a garden, and this is an incredible luxury that we're able to do this. But I think there are ways that you can try to incorporate growing food, even in a small space, like just having a pot of blueberries that your kids can go and pick the fruit and just eat it right off the bush. Is not only just great nutritionally, but also, you know, they're getting a little bit of microbes from the blueberries.
One of the things that I think we're missing in our industrialized world is just a connection with environmental microbes. And so when you garden, there are microbes everywhere here. There's microbes on the greens. There's, of course, tons of microbes in the soil. And, you know, when you pull, you know, food up from the ground that's covered in dirt, you actually have food that's covered in microbes. When we get these from the market, they're quite often completely clean. And the best thing in your garden is just, you know, taking a carrot like this and just spraying it off, making sure there's no chunks of dirt on it. And then, you know, just incredible flavor. And you have this new way of reintroducing environmental exposure into your life.
People are living more and more in sterile environments. We protect our children from playing in the dirt, or, you know, we wash our hands 100 times during the day. Like all these things are basically assaults on a healthy microbiome early in life.
When an infant's born, we have to think about the microbes that they're being exposed to almost like seeds. So you're throwing seeds on this infant. You should constantly be thinking about what are ways that I can foster microbial life. So what food it's being fed, what other sort of interactions that it's having with family members.
If you were to take on the challenge of rebuilding a rainforest, you wouldn't just go and plant one tree. You'd actually try to encourage all this biodiversity by putting in a bunch of plants, and that's really the strategy for rebuilding our gut microbiome.
Ideally, the mother is as healthy as possible to produce breast milk that provides all the nutrients that her baby needs, and also all the nutrients that the microbiome needs, including these things called human milk oligosaccharides that are specific for nurturing a growing infant's microbiome, as well as microbes from the own mother's gut. Often in breast milk, we can see microbes there that seem to have arisen from the mother's gut. So it's an indication that the mother is actively colonizing her infant with microbes. Hey, buddy.
A cameo. Hey, go on, bud. Okay.
Pets are beneficial. Having pets creates a situation where we constantly exposed to microbes from another species. People don't think about it when they get a pet, that they help the diversity of their gut microbiome and their gut health. It used to be with other animals. So living on a farm, being exposed to cows and pigs and chickens, but fewer and fewer people have that exposure. And I've never even seen a cow, face to face. So I think pets have become a very important source for a healthy gut. The most important time in life to have this exposure is as a child or even as an infant. So having a dog around when your child is born, even when the dog licks the face of your child, is probably a good thing.
We've been taught that bacteria are bad. Infections, they are caused by bacteria, and we want to get rid of that. But as our understanding of microbes have grown, we've realized that these bacteria that cause disease are actually a very small proportion of the microbes. And the majority of microbes that surround us are very beneficial. We want to nurture them.
Something that's been hammered into our heads, I think, is you want to have kids wash their hands and you want to be sanitized and clean and make sure they're protected from germs. But we think this actually has a negative impact also in shielding us from potentially beneficial microbes that could be either picked up from the environment or transmitted between people. And so we really operate a continual cost-benefit analysis over whether we should be washing our hands and how clean we need to be. There are environments that we need to have sterilized, for instance, an operating room. But when we're in our own kitchen, we don't need a sterile environment. If we've ridden the subway, we're definitely washing our hands after that. But if we've been out in the forest taking a walk in nature, we may not wash our hands before we have lunch. It may be okay to not be so careful about cleanliness.
Of course, antibiotics are required in certain situations. The problem is that we think of antibiotics as these precision weapons that attack bad microbes, but they just carpet bomb every microbe in their path. So yes, they do get rid of bad bacteria, but we have to be mindful of the fact that they're also harming good bacteria.
As you are trying to raise this child, you can make decisions that are informed, limiting antibiotic use to only when it's absolutely necessary and not using antibiotics every, chance you get, because that just wipes out the ecosystem.
Being mindful of okay, my gut microbes have taken a hit because of this. And so I really need to pay attention to get my microbiome back in shape again.
We like to make quick, healthy dinners. So having cooked lentils just waiting in the fridge for us, we can make these on the weekend, and it makes a base for a nice healthy salad.
Just quick rinse.
So, we love to ferment food, and we had some beans from the garden. This brine is totally cloudy. Those are all the microbes that have grown in there, and has all the flavor of all the herbs and garlic that I put in there. You can just take a little bit and chop it up and put it into your salad that give a whole new texture and flavor profile.
Eating this kind of food, over time, you really start to crave it, those fermented food flavors, the fresh vegetables. You find yourself just wanting to find more and more of it.
One of our favorite things is to put kimchi on everything we make. Pizza, avocado toast for breakfast. I mean, you name it, we put kimchi on it.
Kimchi is an important ferment to talk about because it is the backbone of an entire nation and peoples in South Korea. But it's also just this superfood. I mean, taste-wise alone, it has everything you need. It contains, that variety of plants that you look to include in a diet that's conducive to your good gut health. What we're making here today is mak kimchi. And that translates to quick or emergency kimchi. Basically, if you can make a salad, you can make this version of kimchi. We're going to start by just chopping up our cabbage into kind of manageable pieces that you would enjoy having in your mouth size-wise to the core. Then transfer our cut cabbage to the bowl. And we're going to go for ginger, a head of garlic and 1 bunch of scallions, and 1 carrot and an equivalent amount of daikon. I'll get chopping. ASMR. now we're weighing all the veg in this container to make sure that we have the correct amount of salt in at the end. And the salt is our control measure for the ferment. It's what's going to keep out the pathogenic or malevolent bacteria and allow the salt-loving helpful bacteria, the lactic acid bacteria, to thrive. We're going to add in about a cup or so of our Korean chili flake, gochugaru. And this is up to you. You can make this as spicy or as mild as you'd like. Next up, we're going to add fish sauce, which is in itself a fermented product. So I now have 4 pounds of veg in this bowl, and we're going to do some quick math to get to how much salt we need. So 2% is kind of that sweet spot where you're pushing out the bad and making room for the good without the ferment being too salty in itself. Now, it's important to note that this was just kosher salt, which is just desiccated sodium chloride. You can also use sea salt, but I would not recommend using table salt. Now we get to mixing. And for this ferment, I always wear gloves. Why? Because you will be caught red-handed if you don't. We're just gonna start slow and gently massage this. You wanna hear the crunch of all those vegetables. And immediately, as you start to work your way in, you'll notice that the volume is going to drastically decrease. The leaves of the cabbage and all the veg will start to get wet. That's osmosis working. And that's a super important process because that juice that you're going to massage out of these leaves is going to act as a brine that displaces oxygen when this is finally packed into its container and makes the environment within the kimchi completely anaerobic or void of oxygen for life processes. But having the brine displace oxygen keeps out another kind of uninvited guest, which is fungus. And that's usually where ferments go bad. A taste test, because it's important to note that any ferment should taste as good going into a jar as it does coming out. So good. Now, it is a bit salty and it isn't acidic at all, but as it ferments, that balance will change. Once it's finished fermenting, once you stick it in the fridge for a couple weeks and let it mature, that salt will take a second seat to all the other beautiful flavors that will meld together. Now, to pack it away. Take off one glove. Take our lid off of our standard canning jar. And magically, what looked like an enormous amount of food is going to fit in our 8-cup bowl jar just perfectly. Just below the neck of the jar, and that's kind of exactly where you want it to be. We have these nifty fermentation weights here. This is just a little bit of glass that fits perfectly inside most canning jars. So long as you can depress all the solid plant matter and allow a little bit of that liquid to rise above, you'll be creating that water seal that's going to keep out fungus and pathogens. Take our lid, screw it on, not too tight, just finger tight, and we're just gonna sit this on the counter for about a week. As it ferments, you're going to see it start to bubble. It's going to talk to you. You can't count the number of times that I've been alone in my apartment and gotten up to think that I was not alone in my apartment, met by an intruder when my ferments were speaking to me, happy as they turn sugars into carbon dioxide. And you just want to vent your container so it doesn't explode explosively when you finally go to open it. That's called burping in the biz. And all it takes is just a little unscrewing of the cap. You might hear a little bit of gas release and tighten it back up. Do that once a day. And if you care to taste it kind of nearing the end of your ferment, then that counts as your burping as well. One of my favorite ways to enjoy kimchi is over rice with a soy pickled egg, some nori seaweed, and fresh scallions. We have 2 different types of rice here, kind of stressing the importance of eating the rainbow. When you eat short grain brown rice, you're getting all sorts of the best nutrients in rice that feed your gut microbiome. And in purple rice, Korean purple rice, you find all the anthocyanins, the complex organic molecules that make for metabolic complexity once your microbes have gone through them as well. So we're just going to take those, mix them around into traditional Korean purple rice mix. Then we're going to take our soy pickle, stick that in our bowl. We're going to take some nori, cut big chunky squares of that as well. And finally, reach for our finished kimchi. And here's one that's been fermenting on the counter for a week and sat in the fridge for 2 more. The smell is pickly, a bit fishy in a really lovely way. It's deep and earthy, and it is far more harmonious than all the individual ingredients that went into it. So I love a big heaping spoonful of this over top. Cabbage is soft, but it's still crunchy. We're just going to add some fresh greens over top as well. An easy, very gut-friendly, very delicious breakfast, lunch, or dinner. You can share it with your friends because community and fermentation go hand in hand. In the same way that microbes form a community when they start living through a food, humans can't help but mimic that action as you grow to realize just how delicious these foods are, just how empowering it is to produce them, and how fun it is to both make, consume, and share them. Before you know it, everyone in a little social circle is getting together to, enjoy sourdough bread one day or, shared scobies.
The whole premise of Fermentation Farm initially was to have classes to teach people how to make these foods and drinks at home.
This is all kombucha you guys brew yourself?
Yep.
Oh, that's so good.
All of those sodas of today that are made with artificial color and flavor, those are all just trying to mimic when we actually use a lot of fermentation in our food.
The original sodas were all natural carbonation, wild yeast, wild bacteria. Beyond kombucha, you guys also make krauts and pickles and things like that as well?
We do.
Oh, wow. Hello. Oh, it smells so good.
So here's where we ferment all of our vegetables. They're all fermenting here.
Yeah, jicama, fermented jalapeno, tomatillo pickle. It's also amazing to see something that is basically at full production scale, not being a huge industrial process.
Anyone can go to the store, go to Costco and buy, kombucha that was made in a big tank.
Yeah.
But we just try to keep it as traditional as possible because it's very similar to what someone would make at home.
People from all across the world, from all walks of life, young kids, people with disabilities, husbands, wives, single graphic designers just in their little tiny apartments in New York City get together to share in these ideas. And that's where I think the fermentation community finds its strength.
Once upon a time, every neighborhood had a fishmonger and a butcher and a baker, and we've gotten away from that. Now, those sorts of establishments are kind of high-end shops, like nice-to-haves, not need-to-haves. But the idea that a community could support the local fermentery is not a new thing. I mean, the local fermentery used to be your mother's kitchen or your grandparents' kitchen as just a way of life.
And we did that to feel good and be well.
An important part of gut health starts with the awareness. There's this connection between your emotions, your mental state, and gut function. We all know how important the brain in our skull is. What you may not know is that we have a second brain located in our gut from the esophagus all the way to the end of your intestine. The enteric nervous system, it's 100 million nerve cells that are organized in these networks that wrap around the gut. The gut-brain axis is a bidirectional communication pathway. Our body's dedicated signaling molecules travel between the gut and the brain on the vagus nerve. It's not just the brain talks to the gut, but the gut talks back, and it's this circular communication that goes on all the time. Most of the information actually, in terms of nerve fibers, goes from the gut to the brain. We never knew why that was, but Now we know the microbes, all the signals are transported through the system. For example, the microbes stimulate the enzyme in these cells that produce serotonin from tryptophan. 95% of all the serotonin is produced in these gut cells. And then a signal from these serotonin-containing cells via the vagus nerve goes to brain centers that influences mood and wellness. The way we're wired and our brain is set, if you're happy or angry, it's not just in your head, it actually affects your gut in a significant way. There's good evidence that whenever we have an emotional experience, there's two components to it. One is the brain sends a signal out to the gut and its microbes that changes that environment, which is then encoded by the vagus nerve. It goes back to the brain. It's gut feelings, the famous butterflies in your stomach. It's actually an experience of emotional arousal, which can happen both with a good or a bad thing. When I wrote my first book, I was intrigued with this concept of gut feelings and trusting your gut feelings. And why is this term so prevalent and popular across the world in different languages? When we make a decision, we can do it in two ways. We can do it in a linear way, and we create a list with the advantages and disadvantages. And a gut-based decision is something that you could do in an instant. And some people are really good in it, particularly if it affects strongly personal decisions. Go back in our history, 100,000 years, my guess is that the great majority of their decisions are gut-based decisions, and they have to make them quick to assure their survival. That mechanism is extremely good in doing the best for you, with one exception. Like, for example, somebody with an anxiety disorder, your predictions would be biased in a negative way. Then you would always make the wrong gut-based decision. I have to admit, personal experience has taught me they have been incredibly good for my life. Meeting my wife, and within seconds, I knew this is it, about our bodies, minds, and emotions are designed to work with our gut. The brain-gut communication connects the two most important, most complex organs in our body. And the interaction of those two systems in a bidirectional way should be defining our approach to health and to well-being in general. My encounter with patients has significantly changed, I would say, over the last 10 years or so. Initially, it was all referrals from other gastroenterologists of difficult patients. Many of these patients were stressed, had early life trauma, and then developed gut diseases. It's two sides of the same coin, anxiety and gut symptoms. It was a big story 20 years ago when people found that sexual abuse increases the risk of developing IBS. A lot of people now are incorporating a dietary component into the psychiatric therapy as a modulator of the brain-gut microbiome system. There's evidence that if a patient with chronic depression is on a bad diet, like the standard American diet, going on a Mediterranean diet without the medications would take care of the problem with milder depression in 1 out of 4 patients. It's mainly plant and fruit-based, and natural fermented foods all have effect on the microbiome. Tryptophan in the diet has an influence on serotonin levels, and it can be beneficial.
We're definitely being contacted more by physicians, not just in gastroenterology, but also in psychiatry or other fields of medicine, as they start to realize that the microbiome is so integrated in all aspects of health, including mental health.
I would say 90% of adults will breathe into their chest. This pattern is actually something that we engage with the fight and flight response. One of the simplest and most effective strategies to engage your relaxation response is this diaphragmatic or abdominal breathing. It's probably the most ancient technique of relaxation. Put your hand on your belly now and take a deep breath in and move your hand up and down. Switch to this vagal pattern. It will change the way the gut contracts in different areas That will change the habitat of the microbes. It just gives you a sense of relief. It's a mind-body technique. Microbes were the first settlers of the planet. We can definitely not live without them, but they can live without us without any problem. If we, as one of the main hosts now, disappear from the surface of this planet, the microbes will not. If we slow down and pay attention to their well-being, it may very well save mankind.
If we can change our food systems, if we can change the way that we eat, we could make changes to our microbiome and our health.
Animal agriculture on the scale at which we enjoy in the West is a non-starter. Fermentation's role for humanity at large is kind of unwritten and extremely potent.
A lot of the things that we're talking about, which are beneficial to the microbiome, things like a plant-based diet, staying away from industrially produced foods or a lot of pesticides, those kinds of things, are also the things that are beneficial to our planet.
Bringing back health to our society through fostering a healthy gut microbiome.
As a scientist, it's very exciting to watch and see what's coming out. A scientific revolution that we're just at the beginning of. There may be completely unexpected consequences of that research. All of a sudden we have a treatment for Alzheimer's disease or Parkinson's or heart disease.
Maybe you want to respond to a vaccine better, fight cancer. For all of these different things, eventually down the road, we'll have hopefully microbial therapies, ways to modulate the gut microbiome to actually have this precision health component. We may have here a critical node of human health that we just haven't paid enough attention to. Rewriting the rules for how society takes care of our gut microbiome may do a huge amount for combating disease down the road.
Just like the beginning of human existence, we need to rely on our microbial friends. If we can find our way back to a lifestyle centered around the health of our gut, good things will happen.